Here we go. Welcome to the Profit Tool Belt podcast. This podcast is just for construction and contracting business owners who are curious to find ways to work smarter, not just harder. My name is Dominic Rubino, and I'll be your host. Today's guest is me. Yeah. Today, we're going to be talking about how can I afford to hire an office manager, or as you're going to hear me say, an office manager, a project manager, an estimator, a foreman, your own in-house legal counsel. It doesn't matter. I'm going to show you how to organize your company such that the world is going to pay for that new person. So stay tuned for that. This podcast is all about helping contractors get back in control of their construction business, even if you don't know where to start. And I do that in 3 separate places in your business, right? I do that by showing you how to use simple systems in the office, on a job site, and in your shop. You see, the truth is you don't need a lot of extra time or a business degree to build a profitable and solid construction business. What you need are simple systems. I'm going to be sharing some simple systems today. You also need some new ideas to old problems. So that's why this podcast shares expert interviews and real case studies from other construction company owners or other people who can add value to our trade. Now, others listening to this show are probably a lot like you, because on here, as guests and as audience, we have people who are family businesses, people in business partnerships, and also people who are running this company solo, on their own. A company they built from scratch because their work ethic, your work ethic, is absolutely insane. The kind where people watch you working and say, "What drives you? What's your you're Energizer Bunny?" And you say, "Yeah, I am. Got to go. Got more work to do." If that sounds even a little bit like you, then I think you're going to like the show. And I'll tell you right up front, what we talk about on the show is more directed at companies with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 employees. And that includes subcontractors. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're smaller than that, you won't find value. It just means you're going to find yourself challenged a little bit more. In my regular life, when I'm not hosting the podcast, my company works with no nonsense business owners of construction and contracting companies. Kind of company where the business owner stands up, stretches their back, looks around and says, "I'm actually trying to grow a business here." So if you want to be a business person who just happens to be a contractor, you're in the right place. You're in the right place. Now, before we get to the show, I want to challenge you with an important strategic question. It's a coaching question. You're going to hear me ask it again in the show. I want you to ask yourself, do you want to be a contractor running a few crews, or do you want to be a business person who just happens to run a construction company? And my goal is that by the end of this episode, you'll figure that out. Let's get to it. Well, hello, everybody. Today is going to be me. I'm the guest. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that I'm going to be looking down at my notes. And that's because I took a ton of notes before recording this episode. And the reason I did that is there's a lot of frustration that I'm hearing out there right now about people. Finding people, hiring people, finding the right people. I mean, finding the right people is always a frustration. It has been forever and ever. But let me tell you how I got to where we landed today for this important episode, because as you saw, the title of this is "How Can I Afford to Hire an Office Manager?" Now, look, if you've already got an office manager, replace the word office manager with any other position that you might need. How can I afford a PM? How can I afford a foreman? How can I afford an estimator? How can I afford a purchaser? How can I afford my first employee? Whatever it is, I'm going to give you a solution today. And I think the solution is going to surprise you. So stay tuned, but I want to get you to how I got to that answer. And we'll treat this a little bit like I'm walking you through the logic behind it, because I need to get your head in the right space to understand where I'm going with this. Hopefully that makes sense. We'll in a few minutes. First, let me start at the very beginning. When I get called into conversations with business owners, and it's been this way for many years, everybody wants to talk about something different, right? You might think, well, Dom, how do you know what to talk about when you walk into the office of a multi-million-dollar developer or a multi-million-dollar mechanical contractor or a couple $100,000 tradesperson who's doing cabinets or they're doing roofing, et cetera? Like, how can you have the same conversation? How do you know what the conversation is going to be when you go into all those different offices? And I say, well, I've been at this a long time, and I found that it comes down to 7 different buckets. And that's why I took notes today. There's 7 different themes or questions that people ask me. And so over the years, I've learned to become prepared for these kinds of questions and to ask questions when I'm in those meetings to find out more about these things. So here's the 7 things I get asked about the most. Okay. I get asked a lot about time. So business owners, especially in construction and contracting, have a lot of questions about time. Now, not just time itself, because time gets broken down into two other things. There's personal time for the owner. I mean, how many of us are overworked, completely run off our feet? Um, we're leaving the house before everybody else is awake, and we're coming back when maybe they're already in bed, depending on how old your kids are, or they've all just come back from sports or music or tutoring or whatever it is, and they barely get any time to see you. Your personal time is being sacrificed for this business. And your wife has been listening to you for years saying, honey, just after this job, I'll get things in order. This year is going to be better. There's a lot of frustration there, right? So when you talk about time, there's a lot of personal time things that come up for business owners, a ton. And then the other thing that comes up under time is just production time. Now, construction time, whatever we make, build, install, repair, service, do, demolish. How long does it take our team to do that? And you guys have heard me say this before, but quite often there's a lot of frustration when you estimate a job and say that job's going to take 4 hours, and somebody else, it takes 6 hours, 8 hours, 2 days. And you think, how could it take you that long? I've been doing this trade for years, and I can do that in 4 hours. And of course, we all forget that we're estimating based on our best efforts, not somebody else's work efforts, right? So I always get called into conversations that have to do with time under those two categories. So time is number one. Number two is team, people, which is where we're going to land on today, right? Because we're going to talk about how can I afford to hire an office manager or somebody else in my company. And by the way, the reason that we want to do that is so you can buy your time back. So you can't do it all on your own. You have to have other people around. Now, by the way, you can make the choice to be solo. Absolutely. All day long. You can make the choice to be the only person in the field, in the shop, in the office. You can be the only person for sure. But if you decide to grow this as a business that eventually you can sell, or you can sit back and reap the rewards, take dividend checks, take checks from shareholder disbursements, take a salary while you don't work all that much, all of those things. That's why we get into business, right? But everybody has their own choices, and wherever yours land you, they land you, right? But think about having people to support you, because people will take a lot of that burden off you, especially the work that just eats at you, the work that maybe you're not great at, or the work that takes a lot of time away from you. So we've got those two things so far. We've got time, and then we've got team. Then we've got money. Well, no surprise there that people want to talk to a business coach about money, right? And they never have said to me, Dom, I want to lose money faster, and I want to be even more curious about where it went. They're always like, hey, we got to be more profitable. What's going on? I'm working like a donkey and we're not making any money, right? So that's a very common question. That one actually might be the most popular first question I get. The first thing I uncover is we're not making enough money. But then and we're on number 4 now. The other thing I get asked about is exit strategy. So you guys know that I have a personal love or interest in growth for business owners that want to exit. You want to sell to your one of your kids who's working for you. You want to sell to your foreman who wants to buy it from you, or you want to sell it to somebody else at some point. I love that. And, I've built and sold 2 companies of my own. So it's a thing for me, right? Not only do I like turning businesses around, I like selling them. So exit strategy, exit conversations I really like. And I really, really enjoy working with family businesses who want to structure some sort of exit. Like I said, either internally or externally. And that just, it's because I've done it myself. So I really like those kind of things. The 5th thing I end up having conversations around is growth. How do we grow this thing? Actually, I just had a conversation the other day, and the gentleman, he's got 7 employees, 7 plus himself. I apologize if it's 6 plus him, but I think it's 7 plus himself. And he's doing well. He's doing really well. But you know what? He wants to grow. And the reason he wants to grow is he's hanging out with a lot of people who are very well to do. And he feels like he's not, at their level. They're always above him. And he's doing well, but he should be doing better. These are his words, right? By now, I should be doing better than I am. And his personal limitations that he felt were money and time. We've already covered those 2 off. That's number 1. And number 1 was time, and number 3 was money, right? So there you go. It's coming full circle. Anyways, how do I grow becomes the big question. And if you've been listening to my show for any length of time, you know that I love business growth. And I use a very simple reliable, solid, repeatable system to professionalize your business and help you grow it using a system, using something you can trust, using strategic plans. So that's where growth comes in. And then the next two are sales and marketing. And the reason I deal a lot with sales and marketing is because that's how I got into business. I got into business when I was working for Sprint and I sold corporate accounts. And then I got into construction because at Sprint, when I got promoted, I was dealing with low voltage electricians and the sub-trade crews who were doing installations in office buildings. Blah, blah, blah. Long story, but there you go. So sales and marketing are two things that I love. And I like marketing. And so I'm drawn to it and I understand the basics of it, but not the finer points of it. But sales and marketing as a way to drive getting the right customers for the right profit margins is something I'm very interested in. So how does all of that relate back to the question that we've posed right now, which is how can I afford to have an office manager to hire an office manager, right? How can I afford to hire an office manager? And again, I don't care if you want to hire an office manager, if you want to hire an estimator, right? If you want to hire a foreman, if you want to promote somebody, but you can't afford them. How do I get over that problem? And it's been the problem in construction and contracting trades for years. You have a gap in the business. You know that if you filled that gap, you'd buy back your time. If you had somebody else doing all the purchasing, for instance, you wouldn't have to do the purchasing and chasing down the nitty-gritty details. Or if you had an office manager who managed your calendar, who managed all the incoming phone calls, who took care of maybe some purchasing, did a little bit of light bookkeeping, how much of your time per day would that take back? Actually, that's an interesting test. Let's pause for a moment for this break in your brain. Add up in your head how much time a day would be taken away from you if an administrator managed your calendar, took incoming phone calls, did a little bit of purchasing, and did a little bit of light bookkeeping. How much of those four things being done in your business, how much would that buy you back in time a day? Would it buy you back an hour? Would it buy you back 2 hours? Would it buy you back half a day a week? If that's the case, you've got something there and you should be looking towards how to grow to get there. Now, you might be saying, but Dominic, I agree, buddy. I'm already there in my head, but I can't afford it. We're going to get there. I'm going to show you how to afford it in today's episode. Okay, so inside those big questions, there's three that are the most popular, right? You've got time, team, money, exit strategy, growth strategy, sales, and then marketing. But the three that are the biggest, and I kind of hinted at this already when I was talking about the gentleman with the 7-person company, the three that are the biggest is money, team, and time. Those don't seem to be statistically when I look at all of the meetings that I have. What do people start the conversation with me about? They always want to talk about those three things most. They want to talk most about money. Next, they want to talk about team, hiring people, managing people, all of that. And the other one that's a frustration is time. Just absolutely working so hard. They can't humanly work any harder in their business. And yet their business is demanding more and more of their time. What a frustrating place to be. And I've been there, by the way. I've been in that place where every question, not every question, every conversation that I could hear on the job site around me started with, hey, Dom, hey, Dom, hey, Dom, hey, Dom. And if I hear, hey, Dom, one more time, and how many, if your name's Brad, hey, Brad. If your name's Frank, hey, Frank. If your name's Jennifer, hey, Jennifer. It's just everything starts with that. And everybody comes to me for all of the answers. I can't possibly leave the job site because it seems like they don't know what they're going to do. Well, the problem isn't them, it's me, right? There's actually a method called the 1-3-1. I don't know if you've ever heard of the 1-3-1 method. You've heard me talk about it here before in different times, but the 1-3-1 method is this. When somebody comes to you with a statement that starts with, hey, Dom, or hey, Brad, or hey, Jennifer, whatever your name is, your first job, reduce their question to one thing. What is the one problem we're trying to solve right now? Because a problem well-defined is a problem half solved. Maybe write that one down if you can. A problem well-defined is a problem half solved. So make sure you focus it down into one problem. You can do this on the fly. You can do this while you're up on a ladder. You can do this while you're in your truck talking to somebody who's on a job site. You can do this while you're down digging forms or setting up forms with somebody. You can do this when you're trying to get an estimate done and somebody's calling you or standing at your door. You can do it anywhere, right? This is a tool of language. This is a business coach tool, a business management tool, a leadership tool, the kind of things you learn when you do the kind of things I've had the opportunity to do, which is sit in boardrooms, meet in construction trailers, meet at muster stations, meet in business offices all around the world. You start to see that people do the same things. And this is one of the things I learned from the people I learned from. First thing you do is reduce it down to one thing, one problem. Now, once we have clarity on what that problem is, once we're clear on what that problem is, I'm going to go back to the person asking me the question and say, give me 3 solutions to that problem. So that's the 3, right? We got 1, 3, 1. I'll say, give me 3 solutions to that problem. Now, the first time I ask, they're going to go, I don't know. It looks like somebody ran piping wrong in this room and the ceiling's going to be in the way of the drywall. Okay, what are the 3 solutions we've got? You know the answer. You already know the answer, but don't answer. The point here is, yes, you know the answer. I know you know the answer. You know the answer. They know you know the answer, but you're being a leader right now. You're going to make them come up with 3 possible solutions to that particular situation. And it doesn't matter what the situation is. I'm supposed to be working on that side of the building, and there's a bunch of wood leaning up against it. What do I do? Okay, so let's clarify that. There's wood in the way of the job you need to do, right? Yeah. What are 3 possible solutions? That's me playing the part of the employee. Okay, wait for a minute. Let them answer. They're going to come up with 3 solutions. And it almost doesn't matter what their 3 solutions are. Make them do that. Just be patient for a moment. And then agree on one final solution after they tell you their 3. Okay, that's the 1, 3, 1. It was taught to me a couple different times, I've had to learn these lessons a few times because apparently I'm not that smart. One of the times that I remember the most is I was a waiter at a steak restaurant, really cool steakhouse during college. And I had this manager, and I'd go up to him and say, hey, I got this problem over here in my section, and blah, blah, blah. And he would just turn to me and say, Dominic, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. And then he would just turn around and walk away. And I'd be standing there like, what the heck just happened? But he did that once or twice. And then I realized if I'm going to go to my manager with a question, I'd better be going to him to run 3 solutions past him. And so guess what happened? I came to him with solutions. How much faster could he manage me and help me manage my section and take care of the customers? So that's the 1-3-1 method of dealing with people. So there, hopefully you've gotten some training out of this today. It's just called the 1-3-1 method, right? Use that to your own advantage. That's why you listen to the show, is to pick up little tips and tricks like that. So we've got the areas of time, team, and money. And what I did was this, is I went back, on Facebook, we have something called the Contractor Strategy Group. It's a free Facebook group. You have to apply to get in, and it's only contractors. There's no selling in there. We don't let any vendors in there. We've had a couple people try to sell like doors or something, and they just kick them out. And it's a place where business owners can ask business questions, but you have to be in the business of construction or contracting trades. So I thought, okay, if those are the questions that I get the most when I'm in meetings with people, what's been happening on the Facebook group? And so in the category of time, we've had questions very recently in the areas of lead time for jobs and what happens when either a GC or a homeowner changes the lead time on you and the impact on your calendar. Have you ever had that frustration? And then we've also had questions about production time. Typically we want to find ways to reduce, like how do we get jobs done faster? Making sure that we still do a lot of quality, but that we don't have wasted efforts on the job site. We don't have people wasting time. We're not wasting time, et cetera. So that's in the category of time being discussed on the Contractor Strategy Group right now. So the reason I went to look there is to double check my work. Is what I'm hearing when I'm having one-on-one conversations with people the same as what they're talking about on Facebook when it's with everybody? What are the questions other contractors are asking other contractors, right? Well, then we go look at the category of team. Well, we've done a couple of polls, right? We put out a question and we get people's answers back, other business owners back. And some of you are members of the Contractor Strategy Group. Some of you aren't. If you're not, go ahead, go to Facebook, look up Contractor Strategy Group. There's 3 questions, just apply to get in. We asked business owners in one of the most recent polls, contractor business owners, what do you wish you had more of? What kind of skills? And it came up with leadership skills, 41% of the vote. So 41% of the people listening to this show, if that's a reflection of anything, 41% of the people listening to this show wish they had better, stronger, more formal leadership skills. So just a moment, I gave you a leadership skill, the 1-3-1 method. The 1-3-1 method buys you back your time. The 1-3-1 method gets other people to be accountable and responsible for what they do. I'd like you to try using it today. You know what's going to happen. In the next 7 minutes, somebody's going to start a sentence with, hey, Bob, hey, Jennifer, hey, George. And you just right away just say, 1-3-1, do what Tom said, do the 1-3-1. And then you're in the groove, buddy. So leadership skills, 41% of the people in Contractor Strategy Group wish they had stronger leadership skills. If that's something you agree with, then keep listening. We're going to be going through that, or join the group. The other thing we asked in the category of team, the category of people, category of growing your people, is what's the biggest challenge you see in the growth of your business in the next 12 months? So what's the challenge you see in the category of growing your people in the next 12 months? And the biggest challenge was labor. 87% of people said labor. So that's why we decided that this title would be the one we'd land on today for this episode. How can I afford to hire an office manager, estimator, project manager, foreman, whatever your role is, right? Now, let's not stop there, because we covered off time, we covered off team, and then we've got money. And so in the category of money, these are the most, most popular threads on the Facebook group. The threads are pricing on a job, raising money to keep up with cash flow, and how do I deal with net profit and growth? So pricing on a job is a juicy one. We've got somebody in there right now having a very interesting conversation. He's bidding on a job with 46% gross profit, expects to make between 10 to 13% net profit. And there is a lot of heat, a lot of people casting their thoughts in there. By the way, it's a very respectful forum. Nobody on that group is there to snipe or belittle anybody. We're all there just having conversations, right? But isn't that interesting? And you have to ask yourself, are you bidding jobs at a 46% gross profit margin? He's aiming for 50 on most jobs, but he's trying to be competitive on this one. And so there's a great conversation there about the plus minus, the if and, what's going to happen here with that builder who's got a whole bunch of other work coming. If I lose this job now, do I get the other jobs later? So there's quite a bit of strategy behind this pricing question that falls under the money category, right? The cash flow question, stands for itself. Somebody's got questions about cash flow, which makes me wonder what's going on behind that. But those are the kind of questions people have on there. And then, just the question about net profit and growth. And I'm so thankful that question is in there, because we are in business to make a profit. It's okay to make a profit. There's no guilt in making a profit. One of the problems is how we talk about profit. People say, I'm going to take a profit out of my business. We're taking profits. Well, when you say that, it implies that when you take something, somebody else loses something. And so quite often there's a lot of guilt or shame around money. And we've got to deal with that. Your job, my job as a business owner, is to do something for the world. We solve problems for other people. When we solve those problems on time and on budget, then we get rewarded with a little bit extra. That little bit extra allows us to keep the doors open, right? So that I can be there to service that customer later, so that I can be there to put money back into the economy, so that I can afford to pay for coffee for my people. Like, you have to have a profit. You have to have a profit. Otherwise, your business can't stay open. And so if you truly don't care about profits, business ownership's not for you. Maybe you got to find another thing to do. But net profit is the thing, not gross profit. All right. So those conversations are what's going on in the Contractor Strategy Group. And that takes me all the way to this question: how can I afford to hire an office manager? Look, when we talk about hiring people, the big limiting restriction we all have, and we all hear it, we probably all say it, is it's hard to find enough good people. It's hard to find good people, and then it's hard to find competent people who can grow our business. The reason, again, that I want you to find people is because if you're a forward-facing contractor, which is all I talk to on this show, then you need to find ways to buy your time back, to build this business bigger so you can spread the wealth amongst your team, your employees, employ those people so they can go and do things with their families, so they can buy holiday trailers and fishing rods and ballerina slippers, all the things that their kids and family need. That's what you and I do as business owners, is we help them live the lives they want because they've got a job they can believe in, right? Of course, this takes me to the conversation that many of you have heard before, and I hope you've taken it to heart. The conversation is, what's your revenue responsibility per hour? As the owner, we have a revenue responsibility per hour. For the sake of you who've just tuned into this podcast, who've never found it before, the revenue responsibility per hour is you just take your sales from the last year, and for the sake of easy math, let's say it was $1 million. Your number is going to be your number, right? Let's just say it was $1 million. Well, then let's ask ourselves, how many hours did you work last year? Now, all jokes aside, you probably worked more than this, but I'm going to use the number 2,000 hours, which means you worked 40 hours a week times 50 weeks a year. And I say 50 weeks a year because, you took off Christmas and Thanksgiving and some summertime, maybe more, maybe less, but just rough math, right? So when we divide 2,000 and $1 million, we find out that your revenue responsibility per hour is $500 per hour. Now, that doesn't mean that if you go do an install, or if you go measure a site, or you go put up forms for a day, it doesn't mean that you charge yourself at $500 an hour. What it means is you shouldn't be putting up forms for the day. It means that your time as the business owner is responsible for $500 in or out of the company every single hour. I want to put a really fine point on this. It means that you've got to make sure that, using rough math, that you've got 5 people who are doing $100 an hour work. Not only that, you've got to make sure that those 5 people doing $100 an hour work have worked 2 weeks, 2 months, 12 weeks out, right? You got to make sure they're doing what they need to do. And so our responsibility as the owner is at a $500 per hour level. But what does that mean? It means when the Hilti rep comes in and wants to sit down for an hour and just chit chat, he can't. You get to say to him, and this, by the way, is buying your time back. You get to say to him, Stan, I appreciate you coming in. I love you to bits. You're the greatest of all the sales reps. We are moving to a system where we only work on preset appointments. Can you please talk to Cindy up front or book a time in my calendar where we can talk about for a half an hour? Now, you still need a good relationship with the Hilti rep, with the adhesives rep, with the siding rep, with the roofing rep. You need a good relationship with all those people, because vendors are a big part of managing our profit leaks. We want to make sure we have great vendor relationships and that we're able to apply discounts or get questions answered when we have questions about billings, right? So you don't want to completely cut them off, but you want to limit that. You can't have somebody just visit your office for an hour, unless it's your daughter or your niece or your son. That's fine. But it can't be a sales rep who just plops himself down, asks for a coffee, and sits there for an hour and adds no value, right? Let me take that $500 per hour challenge and ramp it up one more level. It's also your responsibility to make sure you're gathering, you're demanding $500 an hour of value for everybody you're sitting in front of. This podcast episode is a case in point. If you can't find a way to get $500 worth of value out of this podcast episode, minimum, then you have to unsubscribe from the show and never come back again. And I'm not kidding you. The responsibility is on you. We just talked about the 1-3-1 method, right? We talked about some scripting for dealing with people that are tugging at you all the time. If doing that saved you 1 hour a week, there's your $500, right? If all of that saved you 1 hour, there's your $500. So you have to also demand that the world helps you get your $500 an hour. I'm going to leave it at that. There's a lot more behind the revenue responsibility per hour, but when we start to talk about finding people, if you need to operate at $500 per hour, it makes sense for you to give away work that can be done at $40 an hour, $30 an hour, $50 an hour, because you're going to be out there shaking hands and kissing babies and getting new deals, managing deals that are currently in production, dealing with the vendors who have the big questions. You're getting a load of drywall. There's a different pricing that you thought. Maybe you're dealing with some shipping rates. Maybe there's a courier problem, all of those things. But you can have somebody else doing the $40 an hour work, which takes me to some research I did. By the way, if you like this stuff, I'm doing a masterclass. It's called the Time, Team, and Money Masterclass. If you want to do this training and see the visuals that go along with some of the stuff that I'm sharing, send me a text. You guys know my cell phone number. Say it with me, 315-903-7853. And in that text, just say masterclass, or actually say waitlist. Say waitlist, because we're putting together a waitlist for the masterclass. Yeah. And that when we run the next one, I'll invite you to it. And that way you get all the visuals that go along with this. And for your $500 an hour, or whatever your revenue responsibility per hour is, you'll be getting that kind of value back because you're actually learning something there about the business of the construction business. I feel like I need to do a hidden shout out to Don, the high priced accountant who listens to the show. I guess he's getting bored being stuck in an office in the ivory tower. And so Don, just as a hobby, started listening to this podcast about construction and contracting. He got in touch with me and he said, Dom, I love the show. I love the guests you've got. He goes, but you never talk about accountants. And I suppose he's a bit of a jokester too. I just sent him a message back. I'm like, we don't talk to accountants on the show, but it's nice to know that you guys are listening. So we've got all sorts of people listening to the show, but big hi to Don there. Okay, listen, while I'm talking about I can't afford to hire my next office manager, I went and did some research. I went on Indeed and I looked at how much office managers are making in different cities around North America. So I'll do the United States first, and then I'll give you a couple of Canadian locations. So in Seattle, an office manager will make $65,000 to $70,000 a year. In LA, Los Angeles, $60,000 to $100,000 a year. When we look at Chicago, $65,000 to $75,000 a year for an office manager. By the way, I found the coolest thing when I was looking at office manager jobs in Chicago. Barstool Sports. If any of you listen to that podcast, my favorite there is Spit and Chicklets. They're looking for an office manager, and they are paying $65,000 to $75,000 a year for an office manager. So in Chicago, that's who you're competing with. The Dallas DFW area, huge variation. But of course, I searched a massive area. So there's a lot of variation in Dallas and the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I saw office manager positions going between 40 to 65, 70,000 to 80,000. So there's a massive difference in the areas around Dallas-Fort Worth. But you're in that range, right? Now, some of you are shaking your head going, Rubino, I told you it's expensive. I can't afford to hire an office manager. Just give me 2 minutes. We're going to get there. Okay. This whole thing is this massive ploy to get you to understand things in a new way. My job is to give you a different vision on success, to change your head talk, change the language going on in your mind, and get you to a place you never thought you'd be. That's what business coaching does. That's entrepreneurship. That's being a leader, is thinking about problems that everybody else says are in the way. No. Our job is to look problems squarely in the eye and go through them, over them, under them, around them, or completely disregard them and create our own path. That's what we do with problems. That's what I do with problems. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do with this problem. Mason, Georgia. Let's keep going. Mason, Georgia, office managers are on sale. $40,000. And then Miami, $50,000 to $60,000. So obviously different markets have different needs. Housing prices and cost of living is different everywhere. Let's go look up in Canada, work our way from the East Coast back to the West Coast. Toronto, an office manager goes between $50,000 to $70,000 a year. Winnipeg, $50,000 to $60,000 a year. And Vancouver, $60,000 to $75,000 a year. So why did I tell you that? Because, yeah, it's expensive to have an office manager. But here's the trick. You're not going to pay for that office manager. You're not going to pay for that project manager. You're not going to pay for that estimator. I'm going to show you how you don't have to pay for it at all. You know who's going to pay for it? Because you're going to get this person for free. I'm going to show you how to get it for free. It's not a government program. The government's not going to help you here. The government won't help you. Only you can help you. So do you want to know how to get an office manager for free? Do you want to know how to get a project manager for free? The way you do that is you get the world to pay for that position. The world is going to pay for that position. And the way that the world is going to pay for that position is you need to change your pricing. Boom, boom, boom. I know that I do lots of jokes in this show, but right now I'm dead serious. It's time for you to look at your pricing. And there's an easy way to do that. You guys have heard it on the show before. I've got a download. Many of you have already gotten this download. You already have it on your hard drive. It's called the Go Back Report, but it's also called the 1 hour calculator. That 1 hour calculator has 10 boxes you fill in, and the 11th box gets populated right away. After you fill in the first 10, boop, it just comes up. It tells you what your rate needs to be when you do your next job estimate, your job quote. All you have to do is take that go back calculator or the 1 hour calculator. And by the way, if you don't have it, send me a text and ask and just say the word go back. Say the word go back in the text. And you guys know the number 315-903-7853. Just say go back, and then you'll have this calculator in front of you. Just go in there and change your all of the pricing assumptions you're making. So right now, if your labor costs include you and one other person, and so let's say you make $25 an hour and the other person makes 20. I'm doing that because I don't want to do heavy math during a podcast. That's a total of $45 an hour. Well, that's one of the boxes. It's not really hard. The only hard part is not doing it and facing the desperation of never having enough money. You've got to make a choice here between the pain you want in your life, the pain of doing something, or the pain of ignoring it and facing the consequences later. So when you fill in the box, it's just going to say, how much do you pay an hour for labor across everybody on your team? So you go, well, I make $25 an hour and my guy makes $20 an hour. So that's a total of $45 an hour. I just told you the prices that an administrator would make. And of course, I'm making up our numbers, but these administrator office manager numbers came from Indeed. Let's say you've got somebody in LA or Winnipeg, Chicago, Dallas, who's in that $50,000 range. Well, that's $25 an hour, roughly. Your market's going to be different. And listen, don't try to hire somebody at the bottom of the market. The world's going to pay for this. Ask for what you want. Be willing to pay $30 an hour. Be willing to pay $35 an hour. So let's use $35 an hour. $35 an hour times approximately 2,000 hours a year, somewhere around 70 grand. You're going to get a rockin' office manager for that. Now, you do your own math, but all you got to do is take that $35 and put it back into that little block in the go back calculator, in the 1 hour calculator. And you're going to come up with a new price. Now, depending on how long it takes you to do jobs, it's going to take a little while for that money to start rolling in. But there's no magic. The magic is you've got to change your prices because the world is going to pay for your new administrator. This is unlimited. It is unlimited. You'll be able to do this forever and ever and on and on. Now, some of you are saying, hold on, Rubino, my friend, you've totally missed the boat. You don't understand my market. My customers won't pay any more than they already do. They're telling me I'm expensive now. Are you kidding me? You want me to raise my prices? I'm getting beat up on price right now. I might lose the job that I thought I was going to get. People are blah, blah, blah. I hear it too, right? Well, you don't have a sales problem. You don't have an estimating problem. I wonder if some of you have already picked up where I'm going on this. You have a marketing problem. That's what you have. You're talking to the wrong customers, or you're not talking to enough of the right customers so that some of the right jobs filter through to you. That's where we need to get you, in front of enough of the right customers, enough of the right customers at the right job size with the right profit levels. And it's all, by the way, it's all in this report. Send me the word, what did I say? Go back? I think I said go back. Just text me. If you don't have this thing, it's the key. This is the answer you've been looking for. If you have a team problem, if you have a problem, you can't find people or you can't figure out how to afford to hire that next person. Again, I don't care if it's a general manager. I don't care if it's an office manager, a purchaser, an engineering person. If you need to hire your own in-house lawyer because you're doing so many contracts, the world is going to pay for that position. And you know, of course, there are companies out there in construction who have their own in-house lawyer. So it's possible. You just haven't gotten there yet. So if you want that report, text me at 315-903-7853 and just say go back. And then you get the go back calculator, which it's easier to say go back than 1 hour calculator, but it's the same when you see it. It's just an Excel spreadsheet. It's got 10 empty boxes and the 11th one gets filled in for you. And if you want to do more, if you really want to dig into this and you really want to get some traction in your business, get yourself on the wait list for the masterclass. Just say wait list to that same the cell phone number doesn't change, but the thing you asked me for changes, right? So just send a text and say wait list to 315-903-7853. If you are stuck and don't know how you're going to get through this gray, dreary period in your business, and if you know that separating your time out so you've got a little bit of time to breathe, you've got time to delegate some things to other people, you've got time to estimate the best jobs or go join a networking group that you wanted to join. Maybe it's the Remodelers Association in your state or in your province. So you could just go out there and get more work. You need to delegate to somebody at the office who you trust, who can follow up on the loose pieces, right? It's amazing what you get when you have an admin person that you trust. Now, that's a completely separate conversation. I'll do that in a separate episode. How do you onboard, hire a person that you trust? Well, it comes down to simple systems again. And I hope you know, I try to help in as many ways as I can in business, and I share everything that I can here on the show, right? But take the first step. First, get your 1 hour calculator, which is also called the Go Back calculator. Send me a text for that, or join me for the masterclass. Get on the wait list for that. There's no shortage of information available to you, but the action has to come from you, right? The action's got to come from you. But go back and think about that. If the question is, how can I afford to hire a new person, office manager, project manager, in-house counsel, whatever it is, the world's going to pay for that. The world is going to pay. So don't be afraid of these prices. If you're in LA and I said it's between $60,000 to $100,000 to hire an office manager, first, be very happy that you're about to employ a $100,000 office manager. I expect a lot. If I'm going to pay somebody $100,000, they're going to be a pretty darn good office manager, right? If you're in Mason, Georgia, and it's $40,000, I still expect a lot for that $40,000 because in that market, $40,000 is good money. It's good money, but you're not going to pay it. The world is going to pay for it. The next commercial TI you do is going to pay for that, right? The next home reno you do is going to pay for that. The next painting job, roofing job, kitchen cabinet job, countertop job, that's going to pay for it, not you. You're managing the money and you're passing it through to the people, but you're also managing the job and passing the end product on to your customer, whether it's tenant improvements or whether it's residential work. So that's where we landed today. Nice big circle, but I felt like I needed to get there before I dropped the bomb and said, listen, you're not going to pay for this person. The world is going to pay for it, right? Change your thinking and you change your outcomes. Everybody else out there, when you drive home tonight, everybody else is thinking the same way. It's so expensive hiring good people. I can't do it. And you'll be smiling to yourself saying, yeah, bring it on. I can hire as many good people as I want because the world is going to pay for my people for me. That's how it works. That's the real logic behind it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned because we're going to be solving a business problem in the next portion. And if you have any questions, get in touch with me. Of course, the cell phone number 315-903-7853. Just as a quick reminder, if you want to join me for the Time, Team, and Money Masterclass, where we dig into these 3 topics even a little bit more, then send me the keyword waitlist and I'll put you on the waitlist. That's how that works. That's for the Time, Team, and Money Masterclass. I only run that class when I have enough people, and then we'll send out an email and arrange a time. But the other thing is, if you don't have the Go Back calculator, if you don't have the 1 hour calculator, you need that. You need to know your numbers. And it's really not hard. The hard part is not having it and always fumbling around in the dark. That's the hard part. So send me a text message and just say Go Back, because that's the keyword I use for that. So I need to keep these all organized very simple for me because I like simple systems. So it's called the Go Back calculator. It's also the calculator you figure out how much does it cost you to go back to a job. So go back, right? But just send it to 315-903-7853 and say, hey, Dom, send me the Go Back calculator or the 1 hour calculator. Then I know which one you're asking for. Okay. Thanks very much for checking in. Let's get to the next segment of the show. Well. What did you learn from that episode? What did you take away from that episode? And most importantly, what are you going to do differently based on what we discussed, what we learned in that episode? We talked again about revenue responsibility per hour. We talked about the mindset shift of understanding the world is going to pay for the people you need. That might be the very first time you've opened up that dark box in the corner of your mind and thought, you're going to do it through profitability. You're going to do it through the 1 hour job calculator or the Go Back report, as it's called. Those reports are going to tell you how to do that. But I hope you found value here today. Now, in this next part, we're going to unpack another business problem that people deal with all the time. And it's a business problem that eats time and causes heartache and slides your company back on its growth. Companies want to get to the next level. Well, this is one of those things that pulls you back. And until you solve it, you can't grow. We're going to get to that in a second. But first, I'm going to start off with a dad joke. The dad jokes today are brought to you by Coach Lee Miller. Now, Coach Lee Miller works with me and he coaches other companies alongside me because, as you know, I'm full and I'm always busy. I've got a great wait list of fantastic clients, but I have lots more demand than I have time to solve. And so I brought on Lee Miller. He's got a dozen clients he works on with me. We work together with our coaching clients, and he's doing a great job. So, anyways, he gave me a joke that I'm going to share today, and then we also have a joke from Rod Morales. All right, so here is Lee's joke. You ready? I'm going to do this best. And for those of you who've heard Lee before, he's got a Scottish accent. I'm not going to do the Scottish accent, but imagine that this came out with a fantastic Scottish accent. Here it is. I caught my daughter chewing on electrical cords, so I had to ground her. She's doing better currently and conducting herself properly. And then we got some great jokes from Rod. Rod and I were on a conference call here, and he quickly shared some jokes with me. Here's one. Hey, what is the scariest tree in the jungle? I want you to think about that for a second. What's the scariest tree in the jungle? Bamboo. Hey, a polar bear walks into a bar, walks up to the bartender and says, I'd like a rum and Coke. The bartender looks at him and says, why the pause? The polar bear says, buddy, I was born this way. All right, there you go. I want to hear you delivering them. Not videotape. Take a picture of yourself delivering that joke to a room of squealing, laughing kids while you're carrying them around the room playing horsey. That would be funny. I'd love to see that. Funny. I'm going to ask you a favor. And for the last couple episodes, I've been asking for a favor. And thanks to all of you who've been doing it. But I would like to ask you very specifically from Dominic to you, leave a review for the show. Now, of course, there's some benefit to me because we're going to get more listeners. But the real benefit is to the listeners. Remember who you were and remember the curiosity or the frustration you had before you found this show. There's other people out there in the trades who haven't found the show yet. And what they need is they need to judge a book by its cover like people do. They're not going to find this show if you don't leave a review. And then when they do land on the show, if it's got lots of reviews, they're going to say, well, I'll give this a try. Ben said it's good. Brenda said it's good. Jerry said it's good. Jenny said it's good. It must be good. And so all you've got to do is leave some sort of breadcrumb out there for the world to say, hey, I got value from this show, from this episode, from all of these episodes. And so if you think you want to invest some time learning about your business, about the business of the construction business, check it out. That's all it is. So leave a review. Feel free to leave a 5-star review. However, I want you to leave an honest review. What do you really feel? Go ahead and leave that review. You're going to let other people who you're never going to meet, That's really the definition of servant leadership, is going out there and doing good for others with expecting nothing in return. So join me in doing that, because that's why I love doing the show. Join me in being a servant leader and giving back to the world and expecting nothing in return. You're never going to know the impact you had on another person, but it's one more brick in the wall that you're building to get to where you want to go. You know what I mean by that. All right. Let's get into solving the business problem. The business problem is, as we're trying to grow our company, there comes a point in time when we need to get different software to grow. And stop. I'm not trying to sell software. I don't care what software you're using. I don't care what app you're using. I don't care what app you're not using. That's not my point. The point here is that you need certain software to grow your business, software or apps. And the way that we usually make that decision is you start Googling, or you see something interesting on Instagram or on TikTok or maybe YouTube, and you think, oh yeah, I do need a scheduling software, or I do need a great way to take pictures while I'm on the job site. And so you go to their website. The website seems great. And so you sign up for a free trial, but then you never use it. Or your people, after you find a great software, your people rebel against it. They're like, we don't want to use this. We don't need it. And you've wasted the money, you've wasted the time, and you've really wasted some leadership credits trying to roll out a software that people don't even care about or don't see the need for. And you're left feeling even more alone in running your business. Does that sound familiar? And you might wonder why I know that. It's because it happened to me in my last company. Remember, I had a company with over 200 locations, and I had to roll out a software. Everybody wanted the software. And then when we rolled it out, they didn't like it. They didn't like it, and they found all sorts of faults with it. Now, do I blame all 200 of them, or do I blame me? You got to blame me. You have to look at Dom and say, what could Dom have done differently? You see, because the amount of time it took and the amount of heartache it cost could never be recovered. And now, no matter what other solution we put in place in front of people, they automatically looked at it and went, well, here's another stinker from Rubino. I don't want you to be in that same place where I was, right? When you roll something out to your company, do it in a measured, thoughtful process. We have an SOP, by the way, an SOP for choosing software. And again, I'm not here to promote any software. I've had lots of software people on the show. I don't even let them promote their software, right? They can say it at the end of the show, but I'm not here to tell you which software you need to use. What I am here to say is, here's how to choose software. So for a moment, I'd like you to imagine that we're operating at the shareholder level of your company. The shareholder level of the company worries about the long-term future of this business, the longest term possible, probably exceeding the length of your own life or my life. Sorry to be rude and impolite, but that's true, right? This company needs to exist beyond you. And maybe you do want to sell it to somebody else, or maybe you want to pass it down to your kids or sell it to your foreman or your general manager. You want to have it working, and you need these SOPs. So the SOP is called, how do we choose the right software for our company? There you go. Sounds pretty straightforward. So just send the keyword software to me, and I'll send you back this. It's really a worksheet. It's not a workbook. It's a worksheet. And what I imagine is, as I put this together, because I've used it myself, is that you print it off and that you have everybody sitting around a table. You're like, what do we need here? And we all fill in the box together and have a good discussion. That way you get the team bought in. So anyways, just send me the keyword software. And you guys know my cell phone number. We've said it before. Let's say it again together. 315-903-7853. And just say the keyword software, and then I know which document to fire back to you, right? But imagine that you're all sitting around the table having this discussion about software, and guess what people are going to start doing? They're going to say, hey, boss, I saw this great software on TikTok. We got to use it for scheduling. It's the best. Everything's great. The colors are great. You customize everything. It's the best. Decision made. You go, well, hang on a second. I'm glad you did some research. Let's go around the table and figure out what we need the software to do. What do we need the app to do? So by slowing down, you're going to speed up, because by slowing down, you're going to make the right decision. You're going to get everybody around the table bought in. You're going to hear everybody's opinions, and you might even hear something you hadn't expected to hear at all. But then that goes into the decision making. What we're trying to do with this worksheet is we're trying to do the opposite of the software company. And here's what that opposite is. The software company wants to make you make a decision based on emotion. I want you to make a decision based on logic, right? So they want to use emotion to help you buy. I want you to use logic to help you buy. I know that sounds boring, but that's why they've got a pretty website. There's going to be a lot of momentum when you first call them. They're going to, let's get on a phone call. We're going to show you this fantastic demo. You're going to get to meet Brenda. You're going to get to meet Bob. We're going to show you this. We do so much in your industry. These are the other people we've dealt with. And you're going to get caught up in the emotion of it. What I'd like you to do is slow down a little bit. You're the leader of a growing construction contracting business. You make wise decisions as a servant leader, shepherding the progress of your business into the future. And so you'd like to introduce logic into the conversation. You're going to get drawn in just as much as I do to all the pretty options and the font and the colors, and it's got this feature, but logic needs to take over right now, not emotion. And so grab this workbook, this worksheet. I'm sorry, I keep calling it workbook. It's just a couple of pages. It's not huge. But you can sit around with everybody in your team that's important on this decision and get their input. And once they start writing it down, once you have a discussion, you'll get buy-in from your people. So anyway, send me the word software. It won't take long. Just type the word software in your cell phone and send it to my cell. My cell is 315-903-7853. Then you get the worksheet. Then you can arrange with your people to really put logic back into the decision instead of letting emotion drive it. And if you're like a lot of people, you've bought these softwares or these apps before, it's only $9 a month. And if I pay for a whole year up front, it's only this much money. But then it ends up like a gym membership. It just sits in your wallet. You never use it, right? You don't want an app doing that. It's just going to affect your overheads. Even worse, an app or a software that does that, like I said, it robs you of the momentum you need to build into the business, because you and I, as the owners, we're steering the course for the company into the future. And we need to do that by making wise decisions and having our people see that we make wise, thoughtful, logical decisions, not always emotional ones. Anyways, I'm going to stop there. I appreciate the fact that you checked into this podcast. I'm going to thank you in advance for leaving a review for somebody who you and I haven't met yet. But I'm also going to say I look forward to the day when I can meet you. We can shake hands, sit down, have a coffee, a beer, a glass of wine, hot dog, wherever we are, and just talk to each other like real humans across a table somewhere. I really, really do anticipate that day. Thanks for checking in. We'll talk to you soon.